Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to take some measurements on camshafts. Actually, I just got done doing it, so I'll share the results. But basically, we had a question of what is these are like this Fab9 Cam is like mystery cam specs. All they say is it's a 272. They don't tell you the lift. They don't really give you much details about the specs. So I took a measurement. This is kind of ghetto. I got to get a better dial indicator, but I basically just C-clamped my indicator to the head, put that on the valve, and took measurements. And I went and checked it. I got it pretty close. And then for the degreeing, I just took a cam gear, threw it on here, and I used a wrench to turn the hex. And basically every tooth, there's like 46 teeth. So I did the math on how many degrees per teeth, and I basically just got it, moved it a tooth, read the dial indicator, moved it a tooth, read the dial, and that's pretty much it. And then I threw it in Excel, and so I didn't get this perfect because I don't really care to be exact and it would take forever to do that. So I just wanted to do something quick to get an idea of what this cam looked like. So let me show you what we got. Okay, so here's what we got. You can see the curve. That's what it looked like. These are the measurements. So these numbers here, this 15.62 whatever, that's this. 360 degrees. Divided by 46 teeth, and then you multiply by 2 because of the cam crankshaft turns twice, and that gives you like 15.65217, which is this number. And I just did basically every time I did a tooth, you add that many degrees, so that ends up being your degrees. This is the lift. Now admittedly, you'll note I made this number up and I made this number up, so this is the 0.1 millimeter and 1 millimeter. So basically this number I just kind of extrapolated, and same thing here. I could have tried to get it exact, but my setup kind of sucked. And I care way more about the 40 thou number, the 1 millimeter of lift. That's normal. Cam specs are advertised at 40 or 50 thou lifts, so I wasn't so much worried about this one. But basically what I did is, if you look at this graph, you see how that curve kind of looks natural? That's the 40 thou point right there. So you can tell if I made it bigger or smaller, it wouldn't fit the curve right. And then same thing with this one down here. I just took a guess. And same thing over here, and it pretty much, I'm sure it's close. So, all right, here's the big results. So a couple caveats to mention. So I actually have 3 cams here. I have the CatCams. Let's see. There we go. So I've got Fab9, the factory cams, and CatCams. I got all 3 of these in here. Now, a couple things worth noting. My measurements were taken with 10 thou of valve clearance. And then I took the max lift number for CatCams, the one that I measured, and I subtracted off the valve clearance, and that's how I got 378. So, and then this number, I did the same thing. I just Googled this. I was able to find these 2 numbers from a Google search. I didn't measure this. Actually, I have done it, but I didn't do it today. I just go in with the internet number. So basically, what we can see is if you compare a 1 millimeter of lift, factory cams are 178 duration. My Fab9 ones are 226. That's a big jump. That's damn near 50 degrees of crankshaft duration. So that's a lot bigger on the duration. And you can see the CatCams, if I go from Fab9 to CatCams, I go from 226 to 332. So that's only 6 degrees more duration. Not very much. A little bit, but it's only 6 degrees. That's not huge. Now the lift, we can see the factory cams were sitting at 356 and we're only at 334. That number might be a touch slow. I'll admit it might be like 5 thou more than that, but it certainly isn't more than 3.4. So it's still less than factory. That's kind of a bummer for a performance cam to have less lift. Despite that, Miata heads don't really flow that good at high lift unless you've done a lot to them, which I've done some, but not too much. So who knows? It would be better to have more lift, but these do have a lot more duration. Now, if we go down to this one, you can see it's got a little bit more lift and a little bit more duration. So this is a better camshaft, but I'm seriously thinking about just sticking these cams in there for now. And I got a couple of reasons. These cams are really expensive. These are kind of cheap, and I can get these quicker. This one took forever to get. And I think I might save these for my next engine. But what this does tell me is these cams they're okay. They're definitely a big step up from the factory. Although you trade a little bit of lift, you get a way more duration, which should mean a lot more cylinder filling at high RPM. Like if you think about it here, say at 1 millimeter of lift, you've got some somewhat decent flow. So that means I've got 178 degrees versus 226. Let's do some quick hopefully this works. So 226 divided by the 178 number. So that's like 27% more. So basically the valve is going to be open 27% longer than it used to be. So you can imagine your VE at high RPM, if you could hold the valve open another 5 or 10% longer, well, that would let more air go in the motor. Well, that's kind of what you're doing. You're adding a lot more time for the valve to be open so that it literally just has more time to fill the cylinder, which explains why you can make more power at higher RPMs. Because basically you just have, more time that the valve's open to get the air in the cylinder or the air in the fuel. So that's actually a big bump. Now let's see what, if we go to the CatCams, those were 232 instead of the 226. So that's only a 2.6% increase. So now you can see why, yeah, that's better, but 2%, 3%, I mean, that's probably not very much. Now the lift, you do get the lift benefit as well. So those cams are 378 lift instead of 334. Let's just be generous and say 339. That might be a little more accurate. So that's 11% more lift. Now the problem is flow does not scale with lift on a Miata head because they just don't flow that good. So even though it's 11% more lift, you're probably only getting, so say 11%, but you're probably only getting like maybe 20% benefit. That's probably being generous. So again, that's like 2% more flow. So, if you get 2 or 3% more duration, 2 or 3% more flow, maybe that adds up to be 5%. So maybe those other cams will make 5% more power than the Fab9 cams. Maybe. Now 5% is not bad, but that's a trade-off, of course. You'd be trading your low end for your top end, so not a huge deal. Now going from the Miata cam, the factory cams to the Fab9, that's probably going to be a nice difference. Like we saw 20-something% more cylinder flow. Now we should have subtracted off for the lift, but it's not that big a difference. And we were during the two numbers that we compared the duration. These are both at the same lift, so maybe it doesn't make as much difference. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on cams. Let's see, if I got this, I'll show you real quick. Okay, so this one's going to be very brief. This is some old data, like years ago. I measured a factory VVT cam, and you can actually see the ramp rates. Like I got a lot of dots in here and really characterized that shape pretty good. So that's kind of cool. But I didn't use these numbers. I just used the numbers from the internet. But for whatever reason on these cams, I showed 207 duration at 40 back when I did this, which is a lot different than the internet. So I have to think about it. I don't know if I'm going to go back and I'd have to redo this entire test to see. I don't remember how I set up to do this back then. But assuming the internet number's right, the factory ones are actually 178. So anyway, that's my that's some cam information. So until next time, you'll take it easy.